talked a lot about issues that I see in other players on this channel, but I think it's important to show some vulnerability and a little bit of humility when you make these kind of guides. So let's talk about my biggest issue. But before we do, if you enjoy this video or any ones you might have seen on this channel in the past, consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. My issue is sort of stemmed from my gameplay in Counter-Strike. When I was younger and I was playing Counter-Strike, I was very focused on aiming, which is, it's an okay thing to do that, right? When you're younger and you're sort of getting into these games, because aiming is the most straightforward way to get what you need done, right? You need to kill the enemy team. So, hey, if I get really good at aiming, I can kill the enemy team faster and I can win. And that's sort of like my thought process when I was going through Counter-Strike until the very end. And mostly until I picked this game up, where things like utility were just as important in this game as they were in CS. But I guess because they were more flashy and they did different things, I started to understand that like utility is a very important part of the game that I just did not have a very good concept of. Like, I didn't understand when I needed to use it, when I needed to buy it. And I very much went by the philosophy that if you aren't going to use your utility, then don't buy it. In Counter-Strike, that's sort of the philosophy I went by. So I never really bought any utility unless it was to smoke like CT on Mirage, which is a very niche case because that's the only smoke I bothered to learn, which was in hindsight like a stupid thing, right? If you're going to spend thousands of hours learning a game, at least learn it correctly. You know, that's really what I took away from that. And if you still don't believe me, there is a very famous like aim coach. I think his name is Aimer7, and he's like on the top of a bunch of Kovacs leaderboards. And he actually coached Psalm, the guy who got second in the Fortnite Cup. I think he's also a Valorant pro now on some big team, but he coached him as well. And he has like a 37-page guide on aiming and the philosophy behind it and everything. But on like one of the first pages, it says, game sense will always trump aim. Being aware of your surroundings and being aware of other aspects of the game will always trump aim, because you can't kill somebody that's behind you, right? Somebody behind you will always win. And how do we get to that point? How do we get behind the enemy, and how do we flank them, and how do we cut the sights off to where we can position ourselves at an advantage so that we don't have to take we don't always have to take those duels? It's by using our utility. It's by using things like mollies to maybe cut something off right here, or to even flash into sight so we have an advantage in the gunfight. You want to have good aim, but you don't want to make your entire philosophy based around aiming, right? Your game sense needs to come into play at some point, and need to understand what's going on around the map and how you can use the tools that the game is giving you to position yourself at an advantage. And that's a lot easier said than done. Like, still, even to this day, there's times where I just push through things like this nonchalantly and just die. And like, I have to really think about, oh, I should have flashed this, or I should have did that. And it's a process, right? It's a process to really heal these wounds, I guess you could say, that I've created for myself. The saddest thing is that I play a lot of entry characters. So I play a lot of Phoenix, for example, and he has basically a Counter-Strike toolkit minus the smoke. He has a molly, he has a flash. I guess you could count this as a smoke if you wanted. His wall, it's kind of a smoke, not in the traditional sense, but it kind of does the same effect. It cuts vision off from a certain angle. Slowly learning how to use these tools effectively. I truly think one, game sense, and two, utility usage is what really separates a plat player from like a diamond player. You know, I feel like between gold and plat is not as big of a jump as plat to diamond, and I'm not sure if I'm correct in that assumption. That's just what it feels like for me. And I've played at these different levels, right? I played as a gold with plats, and I played as a plat with diamonds, and that seems to be the biggest difference, is that the aim is from plat to diamond seems very consistent, right? You can have decent aim, good aim, whatever it is, but what really makes a player get to that next level is being able to use their utility and be aware of their surroundings a lot more than a platinum player would. It takes a lot of critical thinking that I don't think a lot of players are ready to do. If you have this same issue, I like to call it like brute forcing by aim, right? So I feel like that my aim is better than a lot of the other people on the other team. So instead of like doing the smart thing, flashing out, I'm just going to peek this because I'm probably going to win the gunfight. Like I get kind of cocky like that. And then when you lose the gunfight, you look kind of stupid, for one thing, to your teammates. But two, you have to learn from that. You have to learn that, hey, maybe that isn't the best idea. Maybe I should use my utility and just flash it. Just flash it. Even if this flash doesn't hit them, at least you tried it. at the very least, whoever's playing this site, whoever's playing B, is going to hear that flash and either retreat behind a wall, look away, or just be ready for it next time. You're instilling that fear in them that, yes, you have these flashes and these smokes, and you're willing to use them. Or more so, you know how to use them. That is the scarier part, is when you play against somebody who really understands their character and really knows how to use their utility. For me, it's playing against Sovas and like Cyphers who have the different arrow spots, and then they have like the different trap setups and all kinds of crazy shit that they just watch on YouTube, and they like absorb that information and are just really good at their characters. Like I've said in the past, aim is not everything, and people like that who are very good at their characters, are very good at positioning themselves or giving their team some sort of advantage, provide for the team still without having to have the best aim. They're utility players, right? They're support players, or whatever you want to call them. They're just scary in a different way. Not in the way that if they challenge you in a 1v1 duel, you're going to lose to them every time, but in the way that they are setting themselves up to win that gunfight, even though they are mechanically maybe at a disadvantage. But like I always say, we just can't be afraid to try new things. You know, I know there's 4 other people on your team who might yell at you because you throw a flash, and maybe somebody's sitting right here and you flash your team on accident. You live and you learn, right? You have to try it. You have to try these things. Even if it's as simple as standing here and you know somebody's there, instead of just raw peeking this or whatever you usually do, just think about it for a second and maybe throw your flash or put out your wall so your team can cross. Whatever it is, just think about it a little bit more. And then you'll start to develop those critical thinking habits, and you'll be able to do it faster. Like, for example, what I just did right there might not be realistic. It might not be realistic for you to stand here and ask yourself a bunch of questions. But once you do it enough, you'll start to develop that skill to critically think about these situations. And you want to think twice about this. Based on the call-outs from your teammates and where the opponent is usually playing, you'll know what to do. You'll know whether you want to flash this, you know, from here, and you want to push the guy out that's always playing here, or whether you just want to smoke it off. You'll understand these things eventually. Or I guess I should say we should understand these things eventually, because this is still something that I struggle with. I think the next step for me personally is not only like figuring out the kit of my character specifically and like understanding how everything works together, but understanding what the newer characters do. Like, I haven't played in quite a while, and there's so many new characters that I just don't understand what they do. So I think that's a very important thing to learn, is like in fighting games we would say learn the matchup, right? So you have to learn what the other character does so you can understand that matchup. I think the same thing can kind of apply here. I need to understand what the other characters do and how those things interact with my character's kit. Now that I understand what my things do, I need to understand what the other characters do so that things work properly, if that makes sense. There's just so much more to learn in this game that I've ignored for so long because I have such an intense focus on aiming and like getting better at it. And I sort of tunnel vision on that again, you know? So it's just a flaw with me that I want to figure out. And I figured if I'm having that issue, other people out there have to be having it too. I hope this helped you guys out. If it did, consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you again soon.